Welcome to another episode of Red and Black, where your conservatism is not just the color that you're used to. I'm Lenny McAllister, and whether it's Happy Easter or Happy Passover, whatever you want to celebrate, even Happy Tax Day, which if you're celebrating Happy Tax Day, you're probably on the wrong side of the aisle and probably not watching the show, but you're probably celebrating something this weekend. Maybe it's finally spring coming, maybe a little bit, even though I don't know so much for you, Priscilla, because I know your neck of the woods, it's still freaking snowing. So what are you celebrating this weekend? Tax Day, Easter, Christmas, Easter bunny? I don't know. What are you celebrating?
Hey, I'm up for any celebration. I'm definitely celebrating Easter. I play keys at my church, so we're going to have a great service on Sunday, and I'm excited. I've done my part of the taxes. My husband has to do his part of the taxes.
Interesting. Okay, so you're the early bird that gets the worm. Very well. Dr. Metzler, you're down in the nice part of the world, so if it snows down there, Armageddon has officially begun. But with that said, what are you celebrating this weekend?
I'm celebrating, of course, Easter. I'm also celebrating the fact that Elon Musk is African American and therefore my brother.
Let me get to that in a little bit. That was supposed to be the surprise topic of the week.
Sorry.
You're leading into it. Jeff Charles, you of California, Texas, and Florida, and considering you went to the top 3 populated states in the United States so far, you're going to eventually live in Arizona and Pennsylvania over the next 5 years. But I digress. You can go ahead and drink. What are you celebrating this weekend? Wow! He gets a
I'm joining it now too.
Cultured, and now he has wine.
That's
Holy
right.
cow!
Thank you, Keisha.
You see what Florida's done to me already?
Keisha ain't got nothing to do with that. That is all about the woman that is in your life.
No,
but what are you celebrating?
It's
other
red
than her?
wine. It's red wine. She has good taste.
Yes.
So there you go.
Yes. Although I'm the one that likes red wine, but yeah, don't take it too. But yeah, for what I'm going to be celebrating, what you know what I'm going to celebrate. If people like, share, and subscribe this video, that will make me celebrate, because that means that you're sharing it, you're liking it, you're helping us out, and you're subscribing so that you'll be notified whenever we upload a new episode. But of course, I will also be celebrating Easter. I'm also glad to find out that my sister up above me plays the keys too. I play piano, but I haven't played in a while, so I'm really rusty. I played for the first time a few weeks ago, and the first time in over a decade. I was horrible, but hopefully with more practice, I'll get it back.
Man, love is changing you right in front of our eyes.
Well, I've been wanting to start again for a while, so yeah.
So, do you also play the banjo, Priscilla? Because our man down there also plays the banjo.
I didn't know that. I play the guitar and the ukulele, so that's kind of close.
That's close. I play guitar, but not ukulele. I feel weird with the little ukulele in my hand. That just feels weird to me.
So we got 2 other things to celebrate. One's for real, and one is not really a celebration, I don't think. The first thing is we're celebrating the fact that we told you we had some things coming down the pike. This is unexpected, but definitely very much welcome. Starting next week, you all that have subscribed to Red and Black early, tell your friends they can watch us on the Red State channel. Red State is going to start hosting Red and Black. Hat tip to Kira Davis, thank you very much, ma'am, who will not only be facilitating this expansion of our platform, but will also be a guest host on a fairly regular basis. More details to come, but you have to like, share, and subscribe, and let your friends know, especially those that read Red State, that we're coming over to those platforms. So that's definitely something to celebrate. But if you're Jason Whitlock, and I'm going to go to Jeff first on this. If you're Jason Whitlock, you are celebrating the fact that Elon Musk is a black man, soul brother, number one, because when he buys that thing called Twitter, he's going to shut down Black Twitter. He's shutting it down. Like Rahn.
No, see, here's the thing. See, y'all think you're clever with that Elon Musk is an African American. I was making that same joke about Dave Matthews decades ago, so y'all are late with it, okay? But Elon Musk, I mean, it's very entertaining to watch this on Twitter. It's very entertaining to see the news stories. I don't believe for a second that he's going to buy Twitter. I don't think it's going to happen. I wish it would, but I think that this is more him trolling, and maybe he's actually considering it, but I don't think that that's going to happen. But I understand why people are excited about it, because they're excited about the prospect of taking over the left platform that they use to shut down conservative voices with. So I get it, but I just don't get your hopes up.
Let me go to this, though. Now, I'm going to be very specific with you, Jeff. The whole Jason Whitlock, which, by the way, Jason Whitlock in and of itself, his whole career as a quasi-black conservative that's not really conservative but usually has horrible takes, is a troll in and of itself. But I digress on that. The question I have for you is, just making the statement of, there you go, shutting down Black Twitter, which again seems to be the antithesis of what conservatives should want when it comes to free speech. You can't complain about Twitter shutting down conservative thought and other platforms shutting down conservative thought, and then when your bully gets into office, oops, you get where I'm going with that.
Yeah,
you're happy that your side's finally able to do that. That's not constitutional or American. It's just payback, and payback is usually a you-know-what. Starts with a B.
Yeah, it defeats the purpose. And I didn't watch him saying it, so I don't know if he was saying that like tongue-in-cheek or whatever. But, I mean, yeah, you're right. He does have a lot of goofy takes. I mean, so there's times where I agree with him, and I think he's spot on. But other times I'm just like, were you just saying that just to appeal to a certain crowd? Because I don't know what that's all about. No, leave Black Twitter there. Leave it all there. Leave us there, too. I mean, that's all anybody wants. They don't want to be suppressed because of their political affiliation, and that's what's been happening. Now, obviously, they haven't cut out all conservative voices because they can't, but, I mean, I've even experienced it. I get suspended for something that another person can do, and it's okay because they're on the left and I'm on the right. And to me, it's kind of blatant. So I understand why people want this to get fixed. I think people were really disappointed by the rollout of Truth Social, which I never thought it was going to be much anyway, because none of these platforms ever gain any traction. But yeah, I think, I like it, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to happen. And Jason Whitlock, I don't know. Hopefully he got clicks from that, because that's probably why he said it.
Well, Dr. Metzler, let me go to you on this, because in addition to the whole Jason Whitlock trying to twirl on this, that, and the other, is the fact that people miss the fact that Black Twitter has no allegiance. They are almost like anonymous. They will blow up somebody on the left really, really fast. They were the people going after Joe Biden. They were the people that were dragging some other people in the mud. They probably cost people a few elections. They went after Hillary Clinton in 2016 with the whole super predator thing. That was Black Twitter. Black Twitter does not have an allegiance. Yes, they don't like a lot of conservatives. They don't like Donald Trump. But they don't just acquiesce either just because you're Black. And that's kind of the power of Black Twitter, right?
Right. That is exactly the power and the appeal of Black Twitter. So the whole thing makes no sense. But let me also talk about the legal aspects of this. Listen, Elon Musk is not buying Twitter. It's not going to happen. Here's why. First of all, the Twitter board has rejected his offer, and essentially they're currently engaged in what we call the poison pill. That is, they've gone to current shareholders and said, we are going to offer you to buy additional shares at a significant discount. Now, once they do that, then all bets are off, in addition to which one of the biggest shareholders in Twitter, who, interestingly enough, is a Saudi prince, has completely rejected the offer. So this is, Elon Musk is doing what he does, but the sale of Twitter to Elon Musk, not going to happen. There are too many legal and regulatory issues. In addition to which, here's the other question. He's made the offer. He has not put up the cash or showed them where that money is going to come from. He is saying it's a cash offer. Great. When it's a cash offer, you got to tell me where the cash is coming from, which he has not done. And I love Twitter because I love all of the people who are out there tweeting about this, who have no idea how business organizations or corporations work. There's that.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's driving up Twitter stock, I'd have to imagine, just all the speculation around it. But Priscilla, I mean, let's go into some of the other aspects of this, which is, again, the misunderstanding of how free speech works, because you end up having these yahoos that, as long as it's working their way, they don't care if constitutionality gets thrown out the window. And I think if we've learned anything over these last 10 years, when situations like this come up, it's who's really a constitutional conservative or who's a constitutional American and who just wants to win. And the greatness of our country is not predicating if you win or not. It's this is a certain standard. And this just seems to be another example of how we lost it, or an example of showing us that we have lost it.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many platforms that people are going to. You've got Getter and all of these different places, and the voices are getting diluted. I don't know where to go to get as much news as possible because people are leaving, some are staying. But I know that Twitter's going to be here for a while. I'm probably one of many, many people who actually don't follow Jason on Twitter, so I don't keep up with any of his voice or
wait a minute. Now she's accusing of us stuff. She's slandering us. We never said we followed him on Twitter. I don't want anybody in this audience to think that anybody on Red and Black is actually following Jason Whitlock on Twitter. Even when he was just a sports writer that had bad takes, we didn't follow him there either. So let's clarify that. If there's some type of disclaimer, they can put it at the bottom of the screen. For those of you that are in the chat room, please do so. Otherwise, please continue, ma'am.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the hypocrisy, right? As long as it's the free speech that I like to hear, then it's okay. But we need to get to a place where we are intellectually honest when it comes to our constitutional stance on free speech, allow people to say what they want to say. So that's where I stand on all of that. But, I honestly have been focused on other things than what Jason Whitlock is trying to say to Elon Musk.
Well, yeah, just a slight edit, though, on the question of constitutionality and free speech. Let's be very careful about that. The whole Twitter thing, the whole social media thing is not a constitutional issue at all. It's strictly a political issue. The First Amendment is very clear. Government shall make no. And so Twitter's not government. None of these are government. It is purely a political stance. And yeah, they use free speech as a shorthand. But let's be clear. That's not, look, it's very simple. If you don't like Twitter, if you don't like any of those forms, goodbye. I mean, leave it. And stop announcing. One thing I want to say, folks, stop announcing that you're leaving Twitter. Go. If Elon Musk buys Twitter, I'm gonna leave. Bye. It's just ridiculous.
It's the same thing with all the people that moved to Canada.
Right. Exactly. Trump, and they're still here.
Heck, I mean, there was a
same thing about people crying about getting blocked, where they take a screenshot and say, "Oh, someone blocked me." Like, we care if someone blocked you. We don't care.
You probably someone that's entertaining.
Yeah,
it's beautiful the way they took everybody's high school experience and threw it into an app. It called it.
That's
Twitter.
Exactly what it is. Twitter is
nice. That's it.
So the thing that you all avoid these 20-year reunions like the plague, but then you go act like your high school sophomores as soon as you get a handheld in your hand and a 260 characters. So it's something else. I guess the main thing about the freedom of speech thing before we go is it's not so much the fact that you should be able to say what you want on Twitter. I understand it's government cannot prevent freedom of speech and everything else with religion. It's what government cannot do. But at the same exact time, and Jeff, I'm going to bounce to you for just a second. It does go into the aspect of everybody wants collaboration of ideas and ability to express themselves until it's the other side. Even the Ketanji Brown Jackson confirmation. The confirmation was, are they qualified to do this? Have they gone through the ranks and this, that, and the other with the confirmation? Not if you're going to agree with her or not. Because, again, you see all the lower court confirmations where it's like, okay, she's on the left. I don't agree with her on the left, but she has the qualifications, Harvard, this, that, and the other. Yeah, she's qualified. I'm not going to agree with any of her rulings, but so be it. That's gone away. And I'm not necessarily focusing just on her confirmation, but in general, that whole aspect, that principle in America has been long since gone. And people say, well, Donald Trump, no, it left before Donald Trump. I would say it left soon after 9/11, probably before Bush got out of the office. It was definitely by the time he was ducking shoes in Iraq and before Barack Obama came in.
Well, it was Bork. I mean, after the Bork hearings,
Reagan,
that's when this all just went to hell.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I agree with your timeline. I mean, I think that's around when it happened too, because people will blame to the side like, oh no, it shut down when Barack Obama got in office. No, first off, it's not the president's fault. I don't care who the president is.
Right.
It started under Bush. Bush didn't cause it though. The president does not control this stuff. It's us. It's our. But really, if you're gonna blame somebody, you got to blame the fourth estate. You got to blame the media. They're the ones who are pushing a lot of this vitriol. And I think when it comes to free speech, what people also get mixed up is there's the letter of the law, there's the letter of the First Amendment, and then there's the spirit of the law. Yeah. So I think a lot of people think that they're talking about the First Amendment, but when they're talking about Twitter, you're talking more about the spirit of the law, the spirit of free speech, an exchange of ideas, a battlefield of ideas. And when it comes to wanting to shut other people down, yeah, there are people on the right who would support something like that. But really, I can't both sides this one. There's a lot of issues where both sides do it equally. When I talk about when you see a lot of the cancel culture, when you see a lot of the attempts to shut people down, 9 times out of 10, that's coming from the left. And it has been for a while, and it's still going. Now, people will bring up, oh, well, the Dixie Chicks and the right try to get them canceled. If you got to go all the way back to the Dixie Chicks, I mean, come on now. I mean, yes, there are people on the right who engage in that type of behavior, but most of this, and mainly it's because the left are the ones who have the power. So, I mean, maybe that's why, but still, most of it is coming from the left. So, again, I can see why people are excited about Elon Musk maybe buying Twitter, but one, it ain't going to happen. And and when I say that, I don't even say that for the legal reasons. I just don't think that he plans to buy it. And even if he did, we don't even know if that would change anything. So there's got to be another way around this, if there is.
Let me jump into something about cancel culture for just a second here, guys. Let's go into the canceling of the Commission on Presidential Debates, because what we're seeing with what the RNC just ended up announcing over this past week is the fact that they're basically going to force any Republican nominee for president to not be a part of this. Or at least that's what they're saying 2 years before they actually have to make this decision. Part of this seems to be canceling the whole aspect of something that's supposed to be nonpartisan, which is nonpartisan, but people end up having a bias towards the left. Part of this seems to be another Trump string that's being pulled. Part of this kind of even goes into the argument of what we're talking about, which is you're not asking questions the way I like for you to ask the questions, and it seems like it's unfair. Therefore, I'm taking my ball and going home. There's a lot of different ways to view this. Priscilla, I'm going to go to you first on this. I'm going to withhold my opinion because people are going to start throwing tomatoes at me, and I want at least you all to be able to give your opinions before the tomatoes make this place a mess. Go ahead.
Well, I've got mixed feelings about this, but this is a classic case of cause and effect where you could see the clear bias in the debates leading into the presidential election. I think they were unfair. I think that you could see at times that President Trump was not just debating one person, but debating two people. But of course, as Republicans, we are all about freedom to choose what we want. And so the question is, will a presidential candidate be willing to give up part of that freedom for being a part of the team? It's like all for one and one for all when you're a Republican. And so it's going to make a huge statement to say that, hey, we're going to participate in debates that are on the terms that we've asked for. They gave a list of the things that they expected. They felt like they were fair in order to address some of the inequities that took place in the last debates, and they were not met. And so, we're going to walk. And so that's the decision that they made at the RNC level. And so we'll see what other opportunities candidates will have in order to talk about their issues and why they want our vote.
But Jeff, let me. Here come the tomatoes. Donald Trump was never prepared for any of the debates, not in the primary, not in the general election in 2016. and he was worse prepared in 2020. So part of this is that format didn't play well to Donald Trump. The best debates for Donald Trump, Jeff, were when there were 15 other people on the stage and he could just kind of go after folks. When Rand Paul tried to go after him and he spiked him down, and Ted Cruz tried to go after him, he spiked him down. That's different than a one-on-one debate where we saw what happened between the former vice president at the time and the current president at the time. It wasn't good. And so this seems to be, back to Priscilla's point, cause and effect of, okay, if Donald Trump ends up being the nominee in 2024, we got to situate ourselves so that that doesn't happen again, because he didn't look that good in that format. Then, of course, we found out that he, had COVID as well, which was just the coup de grace in that situation.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to filibuster here, but I don't even agree with your premise, Lanny. I thought he did fine. In 2016 against Hillary Clinton, I thought he did fine. I don't think he won each one, but I thought he did fine. When it comes to these debates, the first
define fine, though. Define, what does that mean?
He made his points well. He held his own. He got in zingers. He got in the right kind of zingers that we all know and love, even though we're not supposed to be paying attention to that stuff. He got in the right zingers. He did what he did what he needed to do, and he did it well. He didn't make any major gaffes, really. Now, in these debates, he did. I will agree that he didn't do as well as he did in 2016, especially when that white supremacy question came up. But again, in that first debate, he was not debating Joe Biden. He was debating Joe Biden and Chris Matthews. So, I mean, that's just giving the Republicans ammo to say that it was biased, because it was biased. Even the third debate, Lenny, I mean, and we all know the third debate is usually centered on foreign policy. For some reason, they decided not to make it about foreign policy, and we all know why they did that. The only reason why they did that, because they knew that Trump would wipe the floor with Biden when it comes to foreign policy, because Obama's foreign policy sucked. Biden was a big part of that. Trump's foreign policy, by comparison, was much better. That being said, we're going to have debates in 2024. I don't care what the Republicans say. I think this is a power move. One day they shouldn't withdraw from the debates. Like, even if it is biased, you should still participate and still do what you need to do. But that's not going to happen. There will be debates. And I'm pretty sure it'll still be the debate commission that puts them on. This is more theater, and this is probably them trying to get more leverage. Like, hey, we'll walk if you guys don't play this right. So I don't necessarily agree with the tactic, but I understand it, because, like I said, these debates are biased, and this last one was probably the most biased I've ever seen.
Yeah, but let me go to the resident historian on the show. Dr. Metzler, they didn't like Reagan in 1980. They didn't like Reagan in 84. They were hoping that he would flub. In fact, they were calling him too old. Reagan turned stuff on its head in both elections, once as a twice defeated presidential nominee. People forget that he lost in the primary in 76 and in 68. He finally gets through. Carter's ahead in the polls. Carter starts going on, and he gives the head shake. Oh, there you go again. And it turns stuff on its head. He wins what? How many states did he win in 1980? By the time you get to 84, they're saying Reagan's lost his fastball. Does that sound familiar? And he didn't do well in the first debate. It was biased. They go right after him. And the very first question, what does he go? Well, look, I'm not going to use my opponent's youth and inexperience against him in this debate. He wins 49 states. Morning Again in America comes about. So it's not like they just started being biased against the Republican nominee. So, Dr. Metzler, with that history, and granted, it's 40 years ago, but it's not 140 years ago. Why the move now?
Well, as Jeff said, it's simply a power move by the RNC. They're like, okay, we're going to put this out there. Whatever. It's just not going to happen. See, the problem is the fact that we rely on so-called journalists who are themselves inherently biased to be the moderators. That's the problem. These are the people who are sparring all the time. And I'm going to tell you, I would not be surprised if in 2024, Jen is one of the debate moderators with her new role at MSNBC. I'm telling you. So that's the problem. The problem is the questioners. All of this is an inside Washington game. If we expect it to be objective, it's not going to be objective. But at the end of the day, the debates will go on because a presidential candidate is simply not going to lose all that free airtime.
Yeah, you're right. And interestingly enough, you know, the way they can get this resolved, and Jeff, I'm going to go to you on this for a second, then go to Priscilla. The way they can get this resolved is just get an absolute nobody.
Right.
That nobody's heard of.
Right.
So, you know, Jimmy John Smith, the local anchor down in Fayetteville, Arkansas, is going to be the moderator for the second debate. Jimmy Bob, who has been on this Arkansas affiliate for, 45 years, graduated from Arkansas, grew up in Little Rock, and nobody other than his church has heard of, has been a foreign affairs expert since he was a fellow in 1983. That's the person, because you don't have to worry about ratings. You don't have to worry about bias. To Dr. Metzler's point, if everybody's a pundit in media these days, I remember there used to be a time where Anderson Cooper just kind of tried to bring you the news. There was a time where Don Lemon used to try to just give you the news. Now everybody's a pundit. So if it's yellow journalism, because that's what it used to be called 100 years ago, if everything's yellow journalism, Jeff, how in the blue blazes can you get a moderator that's not doing yellow journalism when they're sitting in that seat? People forget Donna Brazile at one point in time was supposed to do that. And we know the whole controversy, love Roland, but you know the whole controversy with Roland Martin. And that was back in 2016, which seems like it was 30 years ago. It just seems to be all baked into this very questionable cake.
But if you get Billy Bob, though, you got to get Jaquan, too. You can't just have Billy Bob.
Well,
Jaquan.
That's true. That's going to be the domestic affairs.
Yeah, Jaquan got to be in it.
You know what's funny about that, Dr. Metzler? I mean, because Lenny, I think your idea would decrease the bias. I don't think it would eliminate it. But, I mean, if you had moderators from both sides, that might help, because you'll have the conservative who will ask the hard questions of the Democrat candidate. You'll have the left-leaning moderator who will ask the tough questions of the right-leaning candidate. Really, at this point, I honestly think that's the only way to do it. And there's still going to be bias, but again, the bias is decreased. And I mean, and they would have to not get a conservative who just doesn't like MAGA or conservatives. They'd have to get an actual conservative who actually likes conservatives. So I mean, it would have to be something like that. That way, you ensure that both candidates will be challenged. There's not going to be a whole lot of gimme questions, not a whole lot of softball questions. That's how you ensure fairness.
All right, well, hold on, Priscilla, but here's the question, right? Are they supposed to be challenged, or are they supposed to be questioned? Because if you're asking them questions to give them their perspectives on what they would do once he or she becomes president, and then maybe there's a follow-up question for clarity, that's different than what I think people expect nowadays, which is you're going to ask a tough question, and if they say something stupid, you're going to jam them up. Is that even supposed to be the role of the moderator in a presidential debate when it's supposed to be a fact-finding mission, not necessarily a made-for-TV moment, which, by the way, all of this stuff has become made-for-TV moments ever since CNN started having 7,000 debates in town halls over the last 7 to 8 years, which, again, people think started with the Republicans in 2012 and 2016. No, it didn't. It started when they had that elegant black person running against the first female president who wasn't even elected yet, and they were running together. And it was made for TV moments that all of a sudden you had everybody on these stages.
Emotionally charged debates are fun to watch, but they really don't get the American people to where they want. And I also want to say I want to nominate Dr. Metzler to be the moderators, and then why not Elon Musk? I mean, let's people to moderate, because when I'm listening, I'm being very critical of what the answers are. I don't want any more games or shenanigans or theatrics and gotchas. It's destroyed our country. We just look at where we are, like the high inflation. If we're going to get serious about talking about these things, I want to know what the president's plan is for Yes, foreign affairs and safety at the border and addressing the fentanyl crisis and drug overdoses and the fact that our kids can't read and write and are participating in the arts. These are serious questions about the future, and we have to be competitive in the world. We're not competitive.
But Priscilla, that doesn't get votes anymore. That's not what excites Americans anymore. Nobody really wants to hear a politician give a lot of good solutions. They do want to hear zingers, Jeff. Okay. And they do want to hear zingers at these debates, which is interesting because, you know, before one could make the argument that the debates were for the people in the middle. The debates were for the people like Priscilla who are looking for solutions. But Jeff, I would love to say that your model is wrong because I think it's the epitome of what's anti-American and anti-democratic and what's all that's wrong with this country right now. But that might be the only workable model where you just have literally two people on each side, because these debates more and more talk to each side to count up the zingers. Who got who more rattled? Who changed whose body language more? Priscilla, I hate to disagree with you because I agree with what it should be about. But Jeff, it kind of leans towards that. We're more counting who got who better versus who said more eloquent stuff that made more sense, that's actually workable and not just ethereal. It sounds like a great plan that you'll never be able to do.
Yeah, and that's what's sad. I mean, yeah, it's entertaining, but at the same time, like, this is supposed to be where we're supposed to be able to see our candidate articulate their positions and their policy ideas and to defend them. And because in a lot of these rallies, you don't have a whole lot of substance. I mean, you might have a little bit here and there, but really, they're not really designed for that, right? I mean, when they're giving speeches, it's not designed to go really in depth. That's what the debates are for, and that's what some interviews are for. But this is the world we live in right now. We are in 2022, and we want to be entertained. And politics has become entertainment to a certain degree, and that's why a lot of us have this team sports mentality.
But when you're talking about these mom groups and we're sitting in living rooms and we're organizing and we're discussing the problems, I mean, that's who we are as conservatives, is we are talking about the solutions to the problems. It's no more about pinpointing what the Democrats or the left are doing that's wrong. We want to fix the problem because it's our future. Like, we won races on this topic of education and CRT because parents care about the future of their children. And so my message to whoever's watching this in the future, if you're thinking about running for president or any office, we are in a crisis mode. SOS, our kids are at stake in our future. The debt, the national debt. I mean, these are serious issues. And Lenny, you're laughing, but
I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing. What I'm doing
away from the theater.
I recognize, hold on, I'm not laughing at all. I recognize a moment when I see it. I think that we have an announcement coming from Priscilla Rahn right now. Priscilla, is there something that you want to tell the American people about your political aspirations? That was inspiring.
I don't have an announcement yet, because then I would have to start filing with the FEC. So no, I won't have a.
Well, you lose the one shot. Then you're not getting the one shot if you're not making an announcement. The last time we had somebody that was related to the Canadian on this show, they would tease us all the time with these fake political announcements, and then they actually ran for something.
Yeah,
so I'm letting you know.
Yeah, that's true.
He's trying to Kara Davis shoe. That's what he's trying to do.
And
I'll have no plans to run.
Well, that's what she said. But there's a double entendre in there somewhere. I digress. I didn't say it because I'm a good Catholic. Speaking of doing stuff over again and even double standards, let me kind of pivot over to this Stacey Abrams loss. So there's something in Georgia where literally she filed in motion to say, listen, incumbents can raise unlimited amounts of money for campaigning, but I can't. I should be allowed to because it's official nominees and incumbents. Why can't I? Which, of course, the judge came back and said, valid point, except for the fact that you're still not the official nominee, which kind of goes into a whole bunch of Republican memes about how she still thinks she's the governor of Georgia, and yet we're going into another election. But I digress. I won't even bring up that.
He's the president of the world.
Well, that's right.
according to Star Trek. Dr. Metzler, Stacey Abrams has gathered a lot of momentum, and yes, she's responsible, I would say, in many, many ways for what transpired in Georgia in 2020. But when it comes to her own magic, she keeps hitting these obstacles, and yeah, she's going to be the nominee in a short period of time. But I don't know if that's going to be enough in 2022 for her to win the rematch, especially with this latest ruling coming down and just kind of being reminded that you're not quite there yet. You got a little bit more work to do.
Well, I'm baffled by the legal filings in this case. This has got to be one of the worst legal filings I have ever seen. All she needed to do was to say, you know what? Halt everyone from getting funds at this point. Instead, she makes the stupid argument. You are not the nominee. I don't care. The language is clear. Are you the nominee? No. Then why are you wasting the court's time? Interesting proposition. All she had to do, and the judge would have granted it, was to stop Kemp from being able to do it and say, wait a minute, you can't do that. Instead, they do this backwards filing. I read the filing and I said, my God, like, was this done by a first-year law student? I mean, this is just, and that's why she lost. But it is this arrogance of, yes, I am going to be the nominee. Stacey, you are a lawyer. You cannot be almost pregnant. You must be pregnant.
Dr. Metzler, you are not a biologist, so you can't.
No, I'm sorry, I could not answer that.
I previously mentioned double entendre. Could touch what you just said, but I won't. I can't even go to Priscilla because there's a pregnancy joke in there, and as a mom and a wife, I'm leaving that alone. In fact, I got to take you off the screen just because I love you and respect you. Jeff, it seems as though this is another politician that is getting in her way just a little bit too much. And it's like, what's in your way is your arrogance. You rushed to the court. You were angry that you couldn't do this. You were frustrated you couldn't do this. And as a result, you put in a bad brief that ended up costing you something that you should have had a win on.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit surprised because she's usually a little bit more savvy than that. I mean, she seems to, have her head on straight, at least with most things. But I mean, that's the thing. If she wants to win re-election, she has to make sure she's playing her cards right. And this, she didn't. So the judge even said what Dr. Metzler said. He said, if you wanted to limit Kemp's ability to raise money, I would have granted that. So I'm like, I don't know if she did this herself or if her team of lawyers did this, but somebody messed up along the way. So I don't get it. I still think that Kemp is going to be the governor. I don't think that Stacey Abrams will win. Even if she did get her way in this, what I'm seeing in Georgia right now, I think Republicans have a very good chance of getting it back. And I'm even referring to the Senate seat too.
Yeah, well, if she's worried about raising money, she shouldn't be worried. I mean, the Democrats, they have all that billions and from BLM that they've raised. It's sitting somewhere. They can write her a check. But all of her friends that are waiting on the sidelines with their blank check, they're still there. And I'm sure come May, when she's the official nominee, she will have all the funding in the world to run her campaign.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that race is going to look like, you all? Starting with ladies first.
Republicans are going to win all the way. Just like
No. I didn't ask for a cheerleader. I'm asking for analysis. Tell me why you think that's the case. Now, I may agree with you.
We have better ideas and we actually have solutions, and that we have answers to people, and we're on the right side of the issues. That's why I believe that Republicans will win. And it's a red wave coming, baby. It's a red wave. Lead right, hashtag red wave. We are, everyday people are done. We have inflation. The gas prices are, out of sight. It's crazy right now with all the deaths. I mean, crazy stuff happening with Russia, crazy stuff happening with Ethiopia, sanctions, the border. I mean, Republicans are bringing the answers, and that's the right answer.
Dr. Metzler?
Well, I think in Georgia, Stacey has put herself at a significant disadvantage. I think she had a running chance at the beginning, but unless she shores up her stuff, Trump can do whatever he wants relative to the nominee. Kemp is going to be the nominee. I'm still not convinced on the Senate
Vernon
race.
Jones is not going to be the nominee.
Who?
Sorry, my bad.
so I think
that's what you call.
There you go. So I'm still not convinced on Herschel, although his people are doing a good job avoiding him participating in the debates, because if he participates in the debates, he loses. So I think that's a good strategy. I'm still not convinced on him, because then when it comes to the actual debate between he and Warnock, I'm not sure how that's going to play, because he doesn't know the issues. It's less about
Was it an issue or the issues? Was that singular or plural?
An issue.
Oh, I thought it was either or as well.
No, it's and so that's the thing. I mean, I think he has a lot of goodwill, because people like him from his Georgia days and all of those kinds of things. But the one-on-one debates between he and Warnock, I think, will actually decide this. But I definitely, as it relates to Stacey, I think that's over.
Jeff, real quick. I mean, and I'm not trying to cast shade on Herschel Walker per se, but there's something to be said about another celebrity, and we're seeing this. This is kind of, again, you could say it's a Trump effect, but this has been going on for a second. Having celebrities run for high power offices that they've never held elected office before, then they run for something big and don't know half of the issues, and every time you stick a microphone in their face, they're saying something that somebody has to recant. Herschel Walker seems to be walking that track. Even something as simple as graduating from Georgia, you now have to, when you're recanting stuff like that and somebody brings up, Salt, and do you think that, the late Colin Powell was wrong in his positions on nuclear weaponry during the Obama administration, that ain't going to be good.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to Georgia, I think Republicans do stand a good chance. Especially Kemp. I mean, because right now Democrats are doing horribly, just in general. I mean, it's not even just in Georgia. I mean, I think the dismal performance of this administration is trickling down to congressional Democrats, people, and even in governorships as well. So I think Kemp has that going for him. He's not very unpopular from what I'm saying. So even among conservatives, I think he's going to do well. Even with the Senate seat, I mean, the conditions that were present in 2020 are not present now. There's not a whole bunch of people screaming about a stolen election. There's not a whole lot of people saying stay home because this election is going to be stolen. Those conditions are gone, and Republicans are going to show up because they saw what happened in 2020. As far as Herschel Walker goes, he's polling like 5 points ahead of Warnock. I think he does have a very good chance of winning. And when he skipped that primary debate, I was like, I mean, ethically or morally he should have shown up, but I see why he didn't, because he didn't have to. He had nothing to lose by staying out of it. But there is going to come a time he's not going to be able to duck Warnock. And like Dr. Metzler said, Walker does not know the issues. And Warnock, if he wipes the floor with Walker, he's going to keep that Senate seat. If Walker is, by some miracle or whatever, is able to hold his own at least enough, he doesn't necessarily have to win the debate, but he can't lose the debate, if that makes sense. Like, he can't do anything that makes people lose faith in him and say, okay, no, I can't support that guy. As long as he keeps from doing that, I think he'll probably win.
You know who had a very famous example of that, where as long as they didn't get crushed in debates, they were going to win the election? 2004, Bush v. Kerry, where everybody expected John Kerry to wipe the floor with George W. Bush in the debates, and it didn't happen. And then you had Swift boat and everything else, and then next thing you know, Bush won a second term that nobody expected him to win. So there's a precedent for that.
Yeah, but you're leaving out one important thing there. In addition to all of that, the sailing thing on the catamaran where he's out there trying to parasail, it was
Yeah, I know, but the thing is, if you're supposed to be so intellectually much stronger than a debate candidate who's already weak and suffering in the polls with a country that's losing confidence after 9/11, and you go in there and you underperform, you're not going to be able to overcome. The same way with Walker, even though he's not the incumbent, he's ahead in the polls. As long as he doesn't get bludgeoned, it's enough to keep it going. Jeff, I mean, you'll be proud of me with this. He didn't show up for those debates for the primaries, right?
Right.
One could say that he actually made a play fake, acted like he was going to go, and like my football knowledge. Anybody?
Laney, are you saying that he juked the primaries? Is that what's going on here?
He juked them out. He did a misdirection play.
I'm going to empty this glass because of that.
Yeah. That's not even a dad joke.
Hold on. One more. I got one more. He, at the last minute, he read the defense and called it an audible.
That's not even a dad joke. That's just a sad joke.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you see, Dr. Metzler just redeemed
I'm sad because Elon Musk is not going to buy Twitter and get rid of Black Twitter. Anywho, speaking of people that are reading the tea leaves, Jeff, you wrote something on Red State, and I kind of want to get to you on this before we get out of here, which is that there was a little conversation between Joe Scarborough and Al Sharpton, once again talking about Black voters, and once again, Black voters being disenfranchised and being disillusioned when it comes to these elections, whether they're municipal elections, which we just had in the odd number year, or now the midterms where Black voters don't generally come out as much. And there's this sentiment of, I get why they're feeling like they're just unattached, despite Joe Biden winning in 2020, despite 8 years of Barack Obama. Here we sit in 2022, and they're possibly on the sidelines again. I want you to talk a little bit about that article, and I want to discuss some of the takeaways from that whole sentiment.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Speaking of Black Twitter and how they don't just attack conservatives, they go after Democrats too. I've been seeing a lot of that on Black Twitter. The thing is, Joe Scarborough understands what's going on here. Al Sharpton understands what's going on here. But for whatever reason, the white progressive elites, they just don't get it. You don't push for defunding the police when 81% of Black people want the same level of police activity or more in their neighborhoods. You don't push for teaching young kids about sexuality and gender identity when nobody agrees with that, Black, white, yellow, purple, or otherwise. They are completely out of touch with Black and brown Americans. It's not just Black people who they're out of touch with. And we are more conservative than these white progressives. And you would think that these people never even sat down and talked to a regular Black person.
And who said that? Who said that in the specific conversation that you wrote about on Red State?
That was Sharpton. And I've heard him say this before. Like, this is not his first time going after Democrats for being elitist. They live in their gated communities and, and they're just on their lofty perches. They don't talk to anybody. They don't know what's going on. So to me, it's even on top of that, you don't also make tons of promises during the campaign and then get into office and do stuff for every other group in America except Black people and then expect that none of them are going to leave. I think that they just overestimated the dedication that Black people have to the Democratic Party. Now, this doesn't mean that they're going to lose most of the Black vote right now, but the fact that it's already starting to happen should tell the Democrats, maybe we should actually think about, keeping some of our promises and actually doing something, because you've got Republicans, and I'm so surprised I'm saying this. You've got Republicans right now actually mobilizing, trying to start the process of making inroads in Black communities. This is what I've been wanting, and hopefully it keeps going, but we'll see.
Priscilla, that all depends on who's doing the mobilization, right? You can't say you're the goodie bar man and be handing out rat poison, because people are still not going to come up to your truck. And that ends up being the Republican playbook for quite some time. The messengers are the wrong messengers, and we have good policies. It's articulated wrong with people that can't connect with the community, and then wag their finger and say, "You Negroes, if you just pulled yourself up by your bootstraps," and then it's like, well, why won't they vote for us? Jeff's point is, yeah, they're walking away from the Democratic Party. They still may not be walking and voting Republican in the numbers that, their values may represent.
I don't know, my Nubian brothers, if that's true.
The poll numbers say that, and you know that you wanted to say something else and not Nubian. That's not even right.
I wanted to use, and since you used it, you stole my thunder, so I had to use another word.
Oh, well.
But what I want to say is that movement is happening right here, starting with us and other Black conservatives who are already in their communities, and pastors and ministers and leaders in the community, even in the NAACP and other organizations that have historically been conservative. So it's not that we have to have people necessarily change their party affiliation officially, but people are waking up in the Black community to say, we don't like what we've been seeing. We don't like that we've given millions of dollars to BLM and they took our money and did not invest it into the communities to do anything, but went and bought multi-million-dollar homes. We don't like that. We don't like that we are not safe, even in Democrat-led cities like Chicago, where they have a Democrat mayor and 50 Democrat city council people and Democrats on the school board, and their kids can't read and write. And we've talked about this about Baltimore too. Like, these are the issues, and the Black community is waking up and saying, we no longer are going to accept and give away our votes for nothing in return. And that's where the Democrats don't understand. We are no longer giving them our votes for nothing in return. And so that is, we're going to see more. We might not see like a majority of the Black community, but we have been seeing a trend of more and more Black voters voting Republican.
We need to see we need to see more Black voters, one, not stay on the sidelines in the non-presidential years, and then number two, actually voting Republican in a some of it's there are new migrations. I get that, but some of it's almost a protest vote. And there's a difference between a one-time protest vote, voting for Harambe, voting for Trump because you're sticking it to Hillary Clinton, versus voting for, I believe in these party principles, and I think they have the policies for us. I mean, like, it'll be interesting to see, and you're down in Florida, will the DeSantis voters of 2018 that voted against Gillum because he was anti-school choice vote for DeSantis again in 2022?
Yeah, well, but I think too, what has to happen is we can't have that. We cannot build a conservative party with the one-time vote. Meaning, if in fact you've got Blacks moving over, voting in the Conservative Party has to deliver, much like the Democratic Party has to deliver. And I think that's the issue. There's mobilization, there are all of these things going on. But once you come over, will there be delivery, or will it be more of the same? And I think that is not, in a big way, baked into the strategy.
Yeah, and to your point, as we're wrapping up the show, that seems to be what oftentimes is that bridge. It's, a brown face is not enough, or a brown face that is pretty is not enough. It has to be a brown face and a warm heart and a bright mind and feet that are willing to walk the walk, as well as the mouth talking the talk. And it seems as though we don't seemingly have that enough in the major instances. And I will say this as well, too. Both parties have been very, very, and I'll get your opinions on this, then we got to run. Both parties have not been very good at using Black activists or Black strategists on the way there, and then putting them in key positions once they get there. Jen Psaki's leaving, but what was the name of the young lady that was doing all the work for the Biden administration during the presidential lead up? Jen Psaki gets the press secretary position. The whole, some of us have known Katrina Pearson for years, but Katrina Pearson was a lot more effective on the campaign trail for Donald Trump in 2016 than what's our homeboy's name from the RNC that ended up becoming the press secretary for 15
Sean Spicer.
Sean Spicer, who was press secretary for like 2 weekends at Bernie's before he was out the door.
He was awesome, though.
I digress. But Katrina Pearson was the name that everybody remembered from Donald Trump in 2016. Go ahead and just gulp it all down.
Yeah.
The point is, both parties have not delivered not just on the policies, but also on the actual inclusion. Inclusion is not just putting me in your commercial. Inclusion is having me in the room to give you ideas, even when I disagree with you, when the rubber hits the road. Priscilla, what do you got going on this week? And then we have to bounce on out of here again, folks. Like, subscribe, and look for us on the Red State channels coming up next week. Priscilla, what you got going on this week?
So we, of course, Easter celebrations. It's really near and dear to my heart. Lots of meetings with individuals and working with our candidates to get through the June 28th primary.
Jeff Charles, your fresh perspective, fresh haircut, fresh new location. What you got going on this week?
Yeah, I got more interviews coming up. I'm lining them up, and it's going to be awesome. I've got another audio-only podcast coming out probably next Tuesday. So keep listening, keep watching. And
you're interviewing Priscilla in the next couple weeks, right?
Sure.
Hey.
Yeah, like how I did that.
Manager.
Hey, 15% Priscilla once he pays you. Dr. Metzler, what you got going on this week?
Well, usual stuff, just trying to make things happen globally. This weekend, of course, very special for me as a Catholic. We'll be doing all of the Easter celebration, and we continue to do what we do every Sunday, which is feeding, clothing the homeless. We continue to do that. We've served millions of meals, and it finally looks like the city of Oakland Park is going to settle its long-running lawsuit against us for feeding the poor.
Well, kudos to you for that. Listen, everybody. 1, enjoy your holiday weekend. Number 2, like, subscribe, share. 3, tell people you're going to find us on the Red State platforms coming up soon, and you might even get a chance to glimpse at Kira Davis now that she's hoi polloi and running for office. You might get a chance to see her here, but in the meanwhile, a fresh perspective. Follow Priscilla, Rahn, follow Dr. Chris Metzler. I'm looking forward to talking to you each and every week as well. In the meanwhile, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Stay safe, stay blessed. Thank you for all your contributions in the chat room, and we're looking forward to doing it again next week. TCNGB, take care and God bless. Peace.